So we're going to talk about digital wellness as we have been for quite a while now, but we're going to talk about it today through the lens of a book that was just published just right now in May. And it's exciting because we have the author with us, and Taino Bendz is going to walk us through how he thought through this. When a major publisher comes and says, we're going to publish your book, they are committed to making sure there's good, strong takeaways. And as I was looking at this, I was thinking he really might have nailed some really good protocols for us. And today we're going to go through some of them, and hopefully we'll get into some good discussions. Now, I have been saying all along in these discussions that we are in it. The train has left the station. We are using a digital media all day long for work, for joy, for distraction, for deep meditation, whatever we're into. But there are ways to do it well. And I titled this about this metaphor of a diet. Are we doing it right? Some of the things that Taino asks us to look at are identifying our tech uses and our habits and our triggers, and really kind of being honest about it. Also, what does it mean to be having like purposeful social media, not like mindless, but mindful? What does that feel like? And really making a delineation between, our workspace and our home life, and sort of sanctifying the two and making sure we're not bleeding into each other so much that we have no distinctions. So those are some of the topics I really want to cover. Taino, first of all, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I know that you are, I forget where you're coming from here. I'm going to go look at your LinkedIn right now, and I think you're in Sweden. So thank you for crossing the pond and talking with us. That's the beauty of Swell. Tell us, to kick us off, because I want this to be a conversation. I really want people to jump in and just let's see where this goes. But I do want to know how you became a well-being speaker, author, thought leader. Like what's your background, and how did you realize that you had to write a book? Because that's no small feat. So first of all, congratulations, and tell us about your history so we can understand where you come from. I know you're an engineer, so I know it has to do with sitting for a long time and not getting up, and that probably sucked for a while, and you probably woke up. But I might be wrong, so looking forward to hearing your answer.
Hey, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation on joining here, my first Swellcast, so super excited about that. Yeah, so what started it all? And you're right, I am an engineer, so I am quite contemplative and think about things. And this one has been sitting for quite a long time. So when I look back at it, it probably stems from when I was an exchange student in New Zealand. So I'm from Sweden, but have spent quite some time there. And the first time I was 17, so this was in 2005-06. Left Sweden without, Facebook didn't exist. Spent a year in New Zealand, and it didn't really stuck there. Came back to Sweden, and all of a sudden everyone had this thing called Facebook. And I was like, hey, I had a great time as a teenager before Facebook, and then now all of a sudden everyone's on it, and I couldn't really see the benefit or the value of it. So from that time I never signed up for Facebook, and I was kind of on the outside looking in, and observed how it started. I mean, it brought a lot of great things, but it also started coming in between people and in between relationships, and distracting us from what people wanted to do. So fast forward a couple of years, we got married, had a phone-free wedding. So we'd been to a lot of weddings where, everyone, including us, were so absorbed by our phones that we were missing out on the actual experience. So we had a phone-free wedding in 2014, and yeah, people really loved it and were able to focus on the experience. And we had kids and started realizing, how a lot of parents are so absorbed, or not only parents but adults, so absorbed by their phones that it comes between them and the babies. So we started thinking a lot about that. And then you mentioned the word, waking up, and it was kind of a wake-up call. I had a coach, a business coach in 2019 maybe, And I told him about some of my observations of everyday tech use and how it is, distracting us from life, to be honest. And then we came up with this idea of organizing a phone-free day. So that's the non-profit initiative I started, really just to start helping people. And that's when my sort of journey to the position where I'm in now began. So I started, doing a lot of educating myself, first of all, started talking to people, collecting stories. I had the opportunity to do research with a few universities, and started, giving presentations and so on. And that's what led to it. So that's my kind of background, comes a lot from my concern and my love for the world and for human connection. Really, that's what drives it. And now I'm just super excited to be able to share this book with the world and hopefully give people some new ideas.
It's so beautiful that your wedding had no phone access for people. By the way, great to hear your voice. I'm just thinking about a wedding with no phones and people focusing on the loving couple and each other and just dropping into that space. How beautiful is that? And you need that kind of resolve and, come on, everybody, let's do this together kind of energy. And I think a lot of people do this solo. Most people have a solo relationship to their phones. So it's a solo experience to try to have restrictions around it, or some kind of relationship to it that's more healthy. But what I feel is possible is if we have more societal experiences together without phones, when we're in public places or when we're at a wedding. And I'm sure you cover this in your book. But from your perspective, do you feel like there is a culture that's similar to like the Alcoholics Anonymous culture, where it becomes so ubiquitous that people just have sort of code words and everyone kind of goes, oh, yeah, right, we're not going to do this right now. Like, we're not going to drink right now. We're not going to do our phones right now. Like, do you see this becoming a movement that's more mainstream than it is right now, which is I've spoken to literally dozens of people in this space of digital wellness, and there's still a very small percentage. What's going to make this, do you think, a more ubiquitous cultural shift? Or what are your aspirations for that to happen? What do you see as a tipping point? Do you see a tipping point?
My aspirations are to be a part of a tipping point, of a cultural shift where this unhealthy, disconnecting technology use has become normalized. No one lifts an eyebrow if you're out with friends and you pull up your phone and then everyone else pulls up their phone. This morning I was picking up some bread with my kids at a cafe, and you see couples, a beautiful sunny morning, you see two couples, both sitting on their phones. And with the research that I've done and that I've taken part of, I know what that does to a relationship. So, it's become so normalized, and I think people aren't aware of the impacts that it's having. So my aspiration is to be part of a tipping point of a growing awareness, and there is absolutely one on the horizon. Just looking in the last couple of months or even weeks, what's going on, especially in the US, in terms of legislation, in terms of restrictions on what on the technology platforms, and I think it all starts with awareness. I mean, it's just if we look inside ourselves, I think most people can deep down feel that okay, this isn't actually promoting my well-being, my relationships, my whatever it is, my focus in life. But it's so, as I said, normalized that we don't do anything about it. So I do think that on a societal level, on a cultural level, we need to do this together. It can be driven top down in terms of legislation. It can be driven bottom up in terms of grassroots initiatives. A cafe having no Wi-Fi. I don't know if you've seen those signs. No Wi-Fi. Just talk to each other. There's a lot of initiatives going on, and I think one of the most important things is focusing what are we getting, not what are we giving up. So I think that's a message to everyone listening to this, and I'm super keen on hearing your thoughts. What can we get if we do use tech more intentional instead of it's just about restricting it?
Wow, the cafes that say no Wi-Fi, just talk to each other. This is interesting to me because I'm someone who does a lot of events with people. I tend to gather people. It's been kind of my MO, and I'm really into the power of community, the power of connecting. And I feel strongly that if a cafe or a public space does not provide Wi-Fi, they actually need to take the next step if they really want to revolutionize this, which is what are we replacing it with? Because sometimes people need icebreakers. They need cards on the table with prompts. They need 5 o'clock in the evening event that happens where there's someone facilitating something. Like, unfortunately, I think the art of conversation with a certain generation is just not there, which is why I'm so passionate about people like you being on Swell, because you're bringing sort of this meta presence, because you believe in connecting. We're doing it on a device for sure, but what we can do here, we can bring offline and bring into our worlds. So I think what I'd like to see is more cafes and public spaces provide incentives for people not to want the Wi-Fi. And I know that's an extra step, and who's going to have time, and what do they get in return? I think they build community, and community is, you cannot pay for community. It has to evolve through a common sense of feeling, and you don't feel anything when you're on a device. So this is really about engaging people at the most primal space, which is in the circle. Like, the circle is thousands of years old, 40,000 years old, 1,000,000 years old, depending upon what book you read about where Homo sapiens started becoming, conversant. Anyway, I'm loving this conversation. Let's bring in more voices, and I'm just so happy that you're here.
Yeah, I agree that to make it really valuable, cafes and other places need to take it the next level and sort of say, okay, not only this restrictive, no Wi-Fi, but also see what do we do instead. So I'm totally with you on that. And tech, tech can be used for connection and community, as you mentioned, and sort of connecting online and going into the offline world. One point you mentioned, I'd like to challenge a little bit, which is that you don't feel anything when you're using devices. So I'd love for you to explore on what you mean by that, because a lot of, one big issue of it is that we feel, we have the dopamine release, we feel we get a short-term burst of well-being when we do use social media, and when we get the pings and likes and the colorful, shiny, bright stuff when we scroll social media or news when an email pops up. So, it does trigger some emotions. I think I know what you mean, but still curious on understanding what you mean. Also, really curious on hearing your thoughts on tech-life balance and digital well-being. I heard in one of your in your Swellcast about meditation, that you use your devices a lot. You rack up a lot of hours because you use the devices for work. So how do you sort of balance that without it becoming too much? It's an interesting paradox, because you will get a notification when I'm pressing post on this and we're talking about it. So it is kind of meta, as you said. How do you? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, you're making me laugh, because it is so crazy. It's like talking about not eating when you're in at a banquet of food, like you're still eating. When I talk about feelings and devices versus, the delineation is it's a singular feeling I'm having on a device. I'm having the dopamine rush. I'm feeling something, but I'm not sharing it with you real time, in the flesh. And when I'm sitting next to somebody and we're doing something together, it's a shared feeling. I'm actually almost physically feeling the actual experience of feeling something physical. Like there's more chemistry in the room than just what generates from my synapses in my brain. There's something that's happening between the chemical connection between people in a room and my body moving through space. And that releases its own sense of euphoria. So, it's the balance, right? And to answer your second question, thank you for asking it. I am really, really at a crisis point. And one of the things I'm so thrilled about is these conversations on Swell have been coming from me at all sides, and it's been great because I listen and listen and listen and hear the voices and hear the ideas, and I'm literally on my phone for 13 hours a day. And some of it's absolutely pleasure, connecting to a friend or texting a friend or watching a funny video, but I have to figure out how to be on the phone for less time. I don't even know what damage is doing. I have very dry eyes. I think that might be a connection. But here are things that I am so lucky to have in my purview, like what I can do. I have a home in Los Angeles and a backyard that calls me all the time, and I'm constantly going out there during the day. So I'll put down my phone and I'll go and I'll sit and I'll breathe and I'll drink a cup of water and I'll be with the birds. I have musical instruments around me. I have walking through the city around me. I know when I need to do that. I have a good constitution that's just given to me as a gift from the universe, that I actually have a desire to be physical. And if I didn't have a desire to be physical, I'd be in more trouble. So I think it's the primary thing I like to talk about with the digital wellness is, where are you in your body at any given time? And have you fed it? Have you watered it? Have you bathed it? Have you walked it? Have you caressed it? Have you stretched it? And the body leads everything else. So, can I do that when I'm holding my phone? Absolutely. Is it better not to hold my phone? Absolutely. Like, I think about, I was a touring musician for 13 years before this crazy, social media world. And I had my phone, I had a flip phone, and I was just like touching base with venues, and, I didn't have any connection to the world, and I was writing all the time and experiencing the locals. And it's about being physical in the world. That's my baseline. Are you physical in the world? And if you're not, start being physical in the world, and whatever that means to you. But this is why this is so important and personal to me. So thank you for your question. And I guess I want to follow up with another question since we're in this dialogue, and I really would love some more voices to come in. I always push this out and see who has questions, but I'm going to go for it because you're so interesting. I wanted to talk about the priority that you think is in schools. Do you think schools are taking this seriously? Are there any programs about digital wellness that you know about? I think it starts in school, so I wanted to know if you knew anything about that.
Thank you, first of all, for sharing a bit of your challenges, and I really hope that you do find a way, and it starts that, sounds you're so aware of what's going on, which I think is always the first step of finding that balance. And you've got some good practices, so sure you'll find that balance. Schools, yes, definitely. I mean, there's it's an interesting. First of all, it's quite different depending on where you are in the world, I think, and also on a local level. So I spent a couple of years in New Zealand, where some schools were really on the forefront and banning mobile phones in schools. Not really perhaps supporting youth in digital well-being, but at least recognizing that, okay, they don't need to have access to their phones during school time. But that could become that the kids then spend 10 hours outside of school on the phone. So kids, to answer your question directly, schools doing digital well-being programs, I haven't. I'm very curious to hear if there are. I'm sure there are in the world. I remember reading something about a school in Latin America somewhere, but I can't remember that. There's a lot of maybe you can draw the parallel to the cafes we talked about, without Wi-Fi. So schools coming out and saying, we ban the phones. So that's step one. But then I really think that if you do that, you do need to take it all the way, and also saying, okay, so what does healthy usage look like? You mentioned AA, Anonymous Alcoholics, and if we just say, okay, alcohol is bad, no one under 18 can drink it, and we never talk about how to drink with moderation, and so on. I think that's a a risk, and same thing here. If we ban it, if we keep kids away from whatever it is, whether it's alcohol or phones or social media, and then the second they do get a hold of it, they don't know how to deal with it. So I'm a bit in two minds about restrictiveness. I think it's more about teaching the kids. There is a growing momentum, absolutely, so much going on, and I think it's really, really important for schools to do their bit, but then also, the parents need to do their bit, and we're so strong as a community. You mentioned the word community earlier, which I think is great. My son hasn't yet, but I know that a lot of his friends do have phones, and a lot of it is peer pressure. How come everyone else has phones? Everyone else is on Minecraft or Roblox. Why can't I? And then you give in. But most parents have the same sort of, I think, at least if they knew the risks, they would have the same view of it. So yeah, there's a lot going on in that space.